Thank you, my friends. Today I wanted to summarize some of the insights on interfaith and what it really means, and then invite our very special guest to continue the conversation. So the very first question we are asked all the time: what is interfaith? How do you define it? And everyone stutters and stumbles, and I'm really excited about that. Because that means it is, as of now, it is not fossilized. Do you remember that story we say all the time here, that particularly Abrahamic faiths, God comes down and reveals certain basic truths to some people, but then the devil comes along and says, let me organize that for you. And that becomes religion. So God willing, that is, for at least till now, not happening in the world of interfaith. So then I'm asked, as a Muslim, what do you find in the Qur'an that informs you about interfaith? Well, for me personally, I love that verse in the Qur'an which says, and God has spread out the earth for you as a carpet, so you may walk therein on spacious paths. Those two words, spacious paths, that really resonates for me. So for me, interfaith is about cultivating, having an openness about an inner spaciousness that makes me inclusive. The other more concrete verse, or many verses in the Quran, which point to this remarkable insight, where God says in the Quran, if God wanted, God could have made all of us one single community. But God chose, out of a divine design, to create diversity. And it is specific. It says it gave to each community a law and a way of life. Different prophets, different books, made humanity into nations and tribes, men and women, for two reasons. The first one is, so you may vie with each other in doing righteous deeds. And the second one, which is always used in interfaith, is to get to know the other. That's a key phrase that behooves all of us who really take to heart, to get to know the other. Simple but not easy. I love the other verse in the Quran which says, where God says, and we have created some of you to be a trial for others. Will you have patience? So to get to know the other. Another question we're always asked is, so what is the form? What does it look like to be interfaith? What does it mean to be interfaith? And, our community is actually a very good, shall I say, manifestation. It sort of tallies with the national statistic in this country at least, where a large part of the people are rooted in one particular tradition. Frankly, we are born into it. And interfaith means, by being open to the beauty and wisdom of other traditions, you water those roots. So I, as a Muslim, when I'm open to the beauty and wisdom of other religions, I become a better Muslim. I understand my Quran much more deeply, and I become a better human being. Of course, the fear is that if I study other traditions, it is going to dilute my own. So we say, use yourself as the laboratory. See what happens. Because betting 100% people who say they study other traditions, they end up going deeper into their own. It waters their own roots. That's a major category of interfaith. The other category is, a person might say, I'm sick and tired of religious institutions. I'm like a bee that collects nectar from different flowers. And I want to create my own spiritual path. And that's a growing number all over the world. The Pew Research shows it's about almost 25% in this country and growing. Bees collecting nectar. A third group are people who are curious, maybe atheists, agnostics, who say, I'm tired of religion, I don't believe in this or that. So we tell them, from the interfaith movement, we say, you're actually very, very religious, very spiritual. You believe in God, you simply call God by a different name. You call it truth. You call it justice. You call it humanity. So those are the major categories of interfaith. The next question we always asked is, what's the big deal? Why do we need interfaith? Well, look around you, what's happening all over the world. You know, religion, because of its authority, is used, manipulated as a cover for the secret agenda of so many of us, which is really a fight over gaining access to economic resources, to power. The Sufis say there's so many in the media, politicians, always has been. They're described as all fireworks and no light. And we are the ones who are so easily manipulated. We are incited to foster, to actually deepen our anger, our hate. Our stereotyping becomes bloated. For one reason, and this is the key point, for one reason, among others, we are so religiously illiterate. We know so little about the other person's religion, but we have such strong opinions. And especially when we allow ourselves to become manipulated. It really behooves us to start the first step of interfaith. As Gandhi would say, who knew so much about what it really takes to create peace in a multi-religious society. He said, I beg you, at least start with this. And his insight was, it is the sacred duty of every individual to have an appreciative understanding of the other person's religion. Now, you know, he would also say, you might be hearing it or you might be listening it, but you're not listening, you're not hearing. Because maybe you're thinking to yourself, but I'm open-minded. I am non-prejudiced. I don't need to study other religions to have an appreciative understanding. To those he would say, you might be open-minded, but what are you open-minded about? You must, as part of your duty as a citizen of this global community, and every single society, everywhere you look is multi-religious. It behooves us. It is my sacred duty to have an appreciative understanding of the other person's religion. My neighbor, my colleague, the person I interact with. Without that, he says, you cannot have peace. That's called, in theory, that's called a dialogue of the head. But then in interfaith, as Gandhi would also elaborate on, it is critical to move on to what is called a dialogue of the heart. And I'd like to summarize this by mentioning that wonderful idiom from Greg Mortensen, can I practice the 3 cups of tea with the other? Jamal, can you really in your life, if you want peace in a multi-religious society, that's a dialogue of the heart, can you practice the 3 cups of tea? Listen, respect, and connect. And that is essential. By this is meant to have a human connection with the other. We know for sure, whether it's a poll, whether it's research, that if I practice 3 cups of tea with the other, no matter what the differences are, no matter how wide they are, how severe they are, political, cultural, and especially religious, if I practice 3 cups of tea, it no longer looms as a threat. You know from all the Gallup poll results, those people who are the most opposed to Muslims building mosques, it's 60%. Just over 60%. It's that same number of people who don't know even one Muslim. The 37% who are in favor of mosques being built in different states in America, each one of the 37% knows at least one Muslim. It behooves me as a Muslim to have a dialogue of the head and to practice 3 cups of tea, dialogue of the heart, with Christians. This is a majority Christian country. With Jews. I mean, other neighbors, Hindus, Buddhists. So the 3 cups of tea is essential. All the great leaders have said, teachers have said, a human being is not wired to kill. We can only kill if somehow in our minds and hearts we're able to demonize and dehumanize the other, which essentially means I don't have that human connection with the other. So please be with that, allow that to perfume our hearts. Can I practice 3 cups of tea with the other who is different from who I am? I don't mean just religiously, that is critical, also politically, also culturally. So, last point I want to make, a question always asked, what is the future of interfaith? Is it a passing phase? I would say interfaith is a wave of the present and the future. In the book that we wrote with Ted and Don, we say it's a matter of our survival. And I really foresee the time when people will say, in religion, I have a major and I have a minor. I'm a Muslim, rooted in Islam, and my minor is, for example, Buddhism. And why would that work? As Professor Houston Smith, that wonderful professor of comparative religion, he says, if you look at an object from one angle, you see one perspective. And I would say if you have a minor, you're able to see the same object from different angles. You have a clear understanding. So I know from my own experience, when I am open to the beauty and wisdom of other traditions, let's say in this case Buddhism, I understand my Qur'an much more profoundly, much more deeply. I become not only a better Muslim, a better human being. But most of all, I think, for me, living interfaith, studying interfaith, it sort of takes me out of what I would call a stuckness. A place I'm stuck in. And I don't even know that. So I want to end with this story, which I've said many times here, a true story. I go to many interfaith conferences. In one particular interfaith conferences, there was a group of people from the Abrahamic faiths. They were in fact leaders, Jews, Muslims, and Christians. They were having, shall I say, a very, very vigorous argument about Abraham, Hagar, Sarah, Ishmael, Isaac. And to put it politely, it was very, very, shall I say, vigorous. We were concerned. And here was this Native American professor rolling on the floor with laughter. He was laughing and laughing. And finally somebody said, "What's so funny?" He said, we Native Americans, we have similar stories. The only difference is you guys believe them. That really splashed in my heart. It made me get out of my stuckness.